path to get there is actually full of very existential questions. Ayush Chauhan, I'm based in Delhi in India, co-founded this design and research firm that I now am a part of in 2005 called Quicksand. We're a design research and innovation firm working with organizations to help them actually think through the future of their either businesses or programs, products, services, and so on. For me, the start of Quicksand was pretty much the turning point in my life. Right? This is a decision I took in 2004, coming out of a fairly sort of bad personal accident that put me out for about a year. Had time to sort of think about what I was doing. I was just barely out of college, about 3 years out of it. Having gone through an education which, just to give you the context, is sort of the middle class sort of dream in India, right? It's sort of the Ivy League education in the US, so it's similar to that. A college of sort of engineering at my undergrad and a college of business studies at my postgrad. Two of the most premier institutes in the country, in a banking job, met with an accident. And that point in time, I basically sort of got the chance to spend a few months with a very close friend of mine, who he and I actually grew up together and took very different choices in terms of the careers that we pursued. I think it was without sort of any clear sense of what that was going to be, I decided to. When I recovered from the accident, I decided not to go back to the bank. That was a fairly long time to reflect on just frustrations that I had with what I thought I could do and what I was being allowed to do. Right? And I think that challenge of figuring out what it means to be with another person who's nothing like you, and can you create a deeper sense of meaning with someone like that was what prompted our decision to start Quicksand. It was definitely a choice I made in 2004, which is very different from any other that I'd made up until that point in time, and one that met with a lot of angst and and opposition in the family and kind of my extended circles. But I just felt it was right. It's an interesting question for us because we are ostensibly an innovation firm, right? And we are ostensibly in the business of working with clients, showing them the future of their organizations, of their businesses, or their sort of institutions. But the path to get there is actually full of very existential questions at the end of the day, right? Because I think the grandiosity of an imagined future is lost very quickly when you are caught in the drudgery of everyday tasks. If the path to getting to that future is not as grand as the imagined future is, what is it that you do to make that kind of journey interesting? And that, I think, is the biggest challenge, right? And for me, just a few things, and I'm answering this from my own perspective, right? Of what is the biggest challenge for me is, one, am I able to create a sense of purpose that's larger than what the world is asking me to do today, right? And I think, can you tie your your mundane task to a sense of purpose that's larger than what the limited sort of outline of today's task or activity is? I feel a sense of autonomy is the other thing that is an absolute must to keep things interesting and vibrant, right? And that sense of autonomy allows me to create my future. And I think the future of a collective is actually nothing but but the sum of parts, right? So if I have the autonomy to create my own future, then I think and if I can strive for that in terms of the autonomy that every one person that transacts with me or relates with me also has that autonomy, then I think we are headed on the right path. Adventure and just unpredictability is is the other kind of ingredient for it, right? To keep your journey exciting. And I think you have to create a sense of bravado about yourself as well if you are on that path to future, right? So adventure, unpredictability, a sense of bravado, I think those are the other things that you need to have. And these are all very, very, these are very pertinent challenges. How do you discover that sense of purpose? How do you create autonomy when you're in an organized setup where structures and hierarchy exist, and there is a collective vision that people need to strive for? But how do you create this sense of autonomy and kind of finding adventure and unpredictability in things that, at the end of the day, are predictable? You know your day is going to end today, and you know that you wake up tomorrow to pretty much the same thing, but incrementally maybe different in a certain way. But how do you create a sense of adventure? So I think those are, if I really think about it, those are the toughest challenges. Often we sort of ask ourselves the question is, are we really sort of pushing boundaries on anything at all, right? Or are we just getting by with doing the thing that we can most easily fix and move forward, right? And I think there was an interesting sort of quotation that this friend of mine that I started this studio with gave me, was that that there was sort of a tree in this backyard that was an apple tree, like any sort of other apple tree, and actually would at some point in time had this existential question about what's so great about me. And I'm like any other apple tree in this whole wide world. I'm going to bear fruits one season, and there'll be sort of the cyclical nature of life that I'll go through. And I think the answer to that was that particular apple tree was the only apple tree in that backyard, in that sort of square foot of space that was growing right behind that house. And I think that's what made it unique, right? And that's the way I think that's what we often debate internally, that while we can hold a mirror to ourselves and say, what's so great about what we're doing? There are others in this world who are doing exactly the same thing, probably a lot better. But I think the only answer we come back with is that we're a group of 12 people who are working together, who are collectively engaged in making sense of something that a client comes to us with. And I think the fact that the 12 of us are doing together in that point in time, in our context, given that we are in a city like Delhi, which is where governance is breaking down and where systems are breaking down all around you, but we're doing it in that context, is what makes it unique. And I think it's also it's sort of that one step at a time, and if you can be honest about that step that you take, then hopefully you'll get to a place that's exciting and new. I think one of the most important things for us is to be able to collaborate with other people, right? Because we're not always experts in things that we get asked to look at. I think we're just experts in a certain process and methodology, but that sort of sectoral expertise or domain expertise always comes from other people, right? So our sort of really reason for existence is our ability to collaborate. And I think one of the most striking things that I've learned about collaboration, in as much as it is a concept, in as much as it is an externally facing concept, right, where collaboration is actually about being able to sort of connect the dots, work with different skill sets and so on, it is actually a very, very internally rooted characteristic that will allow you to collaborate. Have you been able to overcome your own insecurities, right, about who you are? Do you have an expansive kind of worldview to embrace, the worldview of others? And often it requires you to be extremely tolerant about it, right? And I think just this your ability to collaborate effectively actually just comes down to these very, very personal traits, right? So all I'm saying is that there's an interesting contrast between what collaboration asks you to do ostensibly, right, and what it demands of you, which is actually almost everything is internal, and it's a very, very internal locus that you need to create, right? And that I think is one of the biggest lessons for me in this practice. You know, what sort of collaboration. So it's always a journey to kind of to be more spiritually grounded, to be kind of firmer in or to be less sort of insecure about your own frailties and so on, right? That makes you a better collaborator. So that's kind of one of the biggest lessons for me. And the other sort of lesson is really about kind of leadership. That is again a really interesting discovery for me. That leadership in itself is such a paradoxical concept that you'll actually find you'll find genuine leadership in settings where nobody is really making a claim on leadership. You know, so that I think is also the biggest challenge is I think you have to constantly distance yourself from the idea of leadership and be able to just connect at a very human level with another individual, right? And am I going to be able to show the same commitment to work that the other person does, right? Am I able to sort of show the same level of doggedness that the other person does? Do I have the same insecurities that the other, frailties and insecurities that the other person does? And I think just to get away from this idea of leadership is really the genesis of kind of authentic leadership that you'll find.
Wow.